Welcome again, students, to section 3 of unit 3, which really talks about developmental changes in adolescence. Now, as usual, to begin with, let me indicate that by the end of this session, you should be able to 1. Identify the chance that occur among adolescents, 2. Explain the internal and external changes that take place in adolescence, 3. Discuss how the age of puberty is determined, 4. Outlines some maturational changes that actually take place in the adolescents, 5. Describe some physical changes that occur in the adolescent, and 6. Discuss changes that occur in boys and girls at adolescence. Now, changes that occur at adolescence. Let me indicate that entering into adolescence is marked by the physical changes of puberty, social changes in the family, peer group, and school environment. The term puberty really comes from the Latin word pubert, meaning age of manhood. Besides, the term has been defined by a medical perspective as a period of physical growth leading to the attainment of reproductive capability. Besides, however, the pubertal development includes physical changes not directly linked to reproductive functioning. Now, Marshall and Turner, 1974, identified the internal and external changes that really take place at puberty and grouped them into 5 general areas. These are 1. Growth spurts. The acceleration of skeleton growth, which is later followed by deceleration or decrease of the growth. The second says the changes in body composition and the distribution of fats and muscle tissue. The third says development of circulatory and respiratory systems, resulting in greater strength and endurance. That is the power to withstand hardship or stress. Now, 4. Maturation of reproductive organs and secondary sexual characteristics, where the reproductive organs could be referred to the genitals, and then the secondary characteristics could also be referred to the body hair and musculature. Now, 6. Changes in the nervous and endocrine systems, where we say they relay information between the brain and then the body, and this really regulates and then coordinates the other pubertal events. Now, to be able to determine the age of puberty, let us also indicate that to be able to determine the age of puberty, one must have reasonably accurate criteria for indicating the transformations that really take place during adolescence. For girls, it is menarche. This menarche here means the first menstruation, and it has been used extensively among girls in research to determine the age of puberty. Aside that, we also say that even though it is not a visible sign of maturity, it has been considered the most salient indicator of pubertal development for girls. Again, scientific studies have shown that menarche comes either at the beginning or the end of the period of the physical changes taking place at puberty. In the case of boys, it is nocturnal emission, and researchers have really suggested that first nocturnal emission may be a comparable event to menarche in terms of reproductive capacity and the psychological significance for boys. Now, maturational changes that actually takes place in adolescents. In other words, maturational changes in adolescents. Here, the maturational changes in adolescents, which includes changes in both size and in physiological patterns. These are the changes that occur with aging in all organ systems. For example, cardiac output decreases whilst blood pressure increases. These changes are governed by stepped up activity in the pituitary master glands, an endocrine organ which is resting at the bottom of the brain and producing a number of different hormones. That apart, biological changes of puberty are triggered by events in young person's brain. And this brain actually instructs the pituitary glands to provide hormones that stimulate the secretions of sex hormones. These hormones, in interacting with external influences, have power to affect on any tissues of the body, including the brain, which are signified by the dramatic growth spurt and contributes to significant changes in social, emotional, and sexual behavior and in the cognitive capacity. Now, the growth spurts of girls occur about 2 years earlier than that of boys. For example, the average 11 to 14-year-old girl is taller than the average boy of the same age. Increases in physical size are the most obvious changes in puberty. Furthermore, during the year of greatest growth, the boy will gain about 4 inches in height. By the time he or his growth spurt is completely over, he would have experienced a height increase of 8 inches, of about 8 inches thereabout. Also, the growth in girls, although not dramatic or impressive, it is still significant in any case. The average gain in height of growth for girls slows significantly after menstruation really begins. So, the next subtopic, which is changes that occur between boys and girls at adolescence. Now, in both sexes, the extremities and neck grow faster than the heads and trunk. And of course, during pubescence, and that gives youngsters of the age of that age, they are long-legged, that is the Cowkey and then Scottish look. In boys, the shoulders get broadening, whilst in girls, the pelvis enlarges. Now, facial proportions also change as the nose and chin become more prominent or conspicuous. Now, the development of the secondary sex characteristics expresses changes in underlying physiology. Both boys and girls develop pubic hair, enlargement of breasts, facial hair, and chest composition, and tend to become much stronger in odor. And this really explains why most adolescents would prefer to use deodorant. Again, in girls, the external genitalia get enlarged, otherwise change very little, whereas that of boys change markedly first. Perhaps the most publicly noticeable secondary traits boys is the change of voice, which is brought about by the enlargement of the larynx, and that is the voice box. Of course, girls are not left out in this development as they also have a change of voice, but theirs is less noticed than that of boys. The physical changes marking the beginning of puberty signifies that it is time to recognize sex differences and define gender roles. In fact, it is usual in some traditional settings to separate boys and girls at this stage, and that is the beginning of the pubertal growth spurt. Finally, ceremonies for girls are often tied with menarche. That is the first menstruation period, like I've already indicated, whilst that of boys involved and would deal or try to prove one's abilities and capabilities. Thank you.